So for those of you that don't know, I actually used to have a photography business back before I had my candle business. I had been doing photography on and off for like over 15 years, I think, at this point. I still technically am doing it, but just not as a business anymore. And so I kind of want to talk about some of the reasons why that business quote unquote failed. And I feel like when you say a business failed, like people assume that you like went bankrupt and you like lost thousands of dollars and you owe all this money to all these different places or something. And that's just not the case for me. That is the case for some people when they lose their business or whatever, but that just wasn't the case for me or anything like that. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that with you guys today, why that business failed, some things that maybe you can do to help your business not fail, and just things like that. So let's talk about it. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Nick with the 1994 Candle Co., and I'm so excited that you are here. So the first reason that I feel like my previous business failed is that I listened to too many people telling me that I had to do certain things within my business. So for instance, I listened to way too many people tell me that I had to do wedding photography in order to have a successful photography business. And the truth is, when I first started photography, I actually dreamed of doing wedding photography. I thought it was like the coolest thing. I thought like those were the best of the best photographers and stuff. I knew that was where people made the most money and stuff like that. And yeah, just all these things about wedding photography, I knew and I dreamed about for quite a while after I started getting into photography and everything. But then I actually did my first wedding. Thankfully, I had done one before, and it was, I had helped out another photographer. Like they brought me along as a second shooter and stuff. And so it was much easier to like kind of know what to expect and, figure things out with another actual professional there, telling me what to do, showing me, what needs to be done and all that stuff or whatever, and giving me ideas for shots and, all this different stuff and, just things like that. It was really helpful to do a couple of those type of weddings where I was like a second shooter first so that all the pressure wasn't on me. But then I very quickly, and keep in mind, I'm 29 right now. I've been doing photography for about 15 years. My first wedding that I did solo, I was like 16, 17 years old. Now, thankfully, there was a lot of grace in this wedding as well because it was my sister's wedding. But there were still a lot of things that I learned that I was like, maybe I actually don't want to be a wedding photographer. The reality is for that specific business, wedding photography, it is just a stressful business to be in. You are dealing with people's, the best day of their lives. You are dealing with some of the moments that they will pass down to their kids and their grandkids and stuff like that. You are taking the pictures of those moments. And so if you don't do a good job, it just, it feels kind of like you ruined their day. But the reality is like that is a really important job for, the day of the wedding. Someone once told me that like you only take two things from your wedding rings and the pictures from your wedding and stuff. And so that is, obviously, aside from, your spouse and things like that. But for the most part, the main things that people are taking away from their wedding day is their rings and their photos. And, so it's a lot of pressure to, make sure that you're doing a really great job and stuff like that. And it wasn't so much that I didn't feel like I was doing a great job. It's just that the anxiety and the pressure and just everything that would come up before I did a wedding was just so much stress. And, I would constantly feel like I, was gonna miss something. I was gonna do something wrong. My, cameras or my batteries or my cards or something was going to fall apart, I would, just constantly have this anxiety like all the time that things were going to go wrong while I was doing weddings and stuff like that. And thankfully, I mean, things did go wrong, but none of them were ever like unfixable or like it wasn't like I ever like lost an entire, you know, like session or anything like that. Like it wasn't like I accidentally somehow deleted all the photos or, anything like that, or lost all the photos or anything. But, like little, small things like a battery would stop working and I'd have to quickly, thankfully, I'd have a backup or whatever, and I'd have to, change it out. But that's still kind of a stressful moment or whatever and stuff. And you're like, well, now is this other one going to work? Or, and, you just kind of freak out in the moment a little bit because you're taking pictures at a wedding. And obviously like the number one shot that you don't want to miss is like the kiss, like when they're officially married and stuff. And so there's just so much pressure doing weddings, and I just never really enjoyed them. And not only that, but they are so much work the day of and also after, because you're talking like you usually take like, I would take like thousands of photos that day, and then I'd have to sit and go through almost every single one. I mean, like obviously like some of them, right away, like, okay, yep, delete that one or whatever, but for the most part, you're going through literally thousands of photos for, days to weeks afterwards. And it's just so much work. So I quickly realized that honestly, I did not like wedding photography. It was probably my least favorite thing to do. But the problem was that it paid the bills. You do get paid a lot because obviously you are working hard. I mean, you should be paid a lot, at least if you're charging as much as you should be and everything like that. But it was just, it wasn't worth it to me. Like the money was not worth it for the, like how I felt after a wedding and stuff. But unfortunately, when I officially started my business, I listened to too many people telling me that I had to do weddings in order to make it as a photographer. There were other photographers that would say that, but then there were also friends and family that told me that like, hey, you made a lot of money at that wedding or whatever, like that's what you need to do. Like, don't focus on these other things that you actually want to do, but you need to focus on this. And I just listened to too many of those voices, and I let people tell me how to run my own business, which obviously was not a good idea. But like I said, listened to too many voices telling me I had to do wedding photography, and that was because I, really badly wanted to quit my 9-to-5. I didn't want to have to continue working a 9-to-5. I wanted to run my own business and, be my own boss and all the things. That has always been my dream, really. And so I kind of took on any client that would come my way, which was also a huge, huge mistake. Because, I definitely did weddings for couples that just, I just overall didn't feel like we were the best fit. I mean, they would reach out to me and stuff like that, and like they liked my style of photos and stuff like that, but just them personally, I was kind of like, and essentially I worked with a lot of bridezillas, let's say it that way, and groomzillas. Honestly, groomzillas were almost the worst. They were worse than the brides sometimes. But yeah, and so it just, working with those type of couples is really, really challenging and makes you really hate your job, to be honest. And so, unfortunately, I worked with a few too many of those, and it really burnt me out because I was too afraid to say no, because I, wanted to make everyone happy. I wanted, and I wanted obviously the money that came with it and everything like that, in order to hopefully eventually quit my job and all that stuff. And so it just wasn't a great fit. So that's kind of my long-winded way of saying, don't listen to what other people tell you to do in your business. Like obviously I give advice here and stuff like that, but if there are things that you don't want to do that I, tell you to do or whatever, then don't do them. It's your business. Like, I'm not going to show up magically and be like, how dare you? Some people, I think, too often give us YouTubers, just too much credit and too much, I don't know, too much power, I guess, or I wouldn't say power, but like, you guys tend to think sometimes that like, that we just know everything about whatever business or thing that we are talking about, and that is just not true. The reality is we are just people who decided to pick up a camera and record us doing things that you are probably already doing. We might, be able to help you, give you some insight and stuff like that, and we might be able to show you new things or whatever, or new ways to do certain things. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it our way, or that we expect you to do it our way, or anything like that. And I think that sometimes people get that confused, and they think that just because they heard it from some YouTuber that means it's the only way to do a certain thing or whatever. And I think that is just it's kind of a silly way to look at things, because literally we are just people who decided to pick up a camera and record ourselves. Yes, we might have been in the industry or whatever that you are looking for, a little longer. In this case, for my audience, usually candle makers, maybe I've been doing it for a little longer than you, or maybe I haven't. Honestly, some of you have probably been doing this way longer than me. Some of you probably look at my videos and you're like, what the heck is this guy doing? And that's fine. Like, just because, I do something a certain way doesn't mean that it is the only way for it to be done. And I think that so many people look at things like that, like that the way that they're doing it is the only way to do it. And like, that's how fights and stuff break out in the groups and stuff. And I always laugh about it. I just like sit and scroll and read comments and laugh, because I'm just like, y'all are a little ridiculous. But if there is something that either a family member or a friend, or, you feel like you get messaging from the candle industry itself that like, you're not going to make it if you do this type of thing, or you only focus on this niche or whatever, don't listen to those. Follow what you want to do, what you align with, what you feel best represents your brand and what you want to build, and go from there. Because if you only do what everyone else is telling you to do, you're going to eventually be burnt out. You're going to be miserable with your business. You're going to feel like you don't really want to do this anymore, because you're going to be, it no longer is your business at that point. It's everyone else's business. And it just feels like it's really easy to lose control of that. Hold up, before we get to this next point, it would mean so much to me if you'd give this video a thumbs up so that it can be shown to more people, as well as subscribe to the channel so that we can continue hanging out. The second reason that my last business failed was because honestly, I hated with a passion the business side of doing a photography business. I absolutely hated it. I could not stand booking sessions, really. I mean, like, I didn't mind that so much, but like the whole business side of, running Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, I felt like I was editing photos for Instagram rather than editing photos the way that I wanted to. I felt like I was constantly being pressured, because that was like, it's not so much a thing now. I mean, I feel like people still do it when you really don't need to, but I feel like there was so much pressure when I started Instagram to like, you had to edit all your photos to look almost exactly the same. Everything had to be, the same style, the same, like, everything just had to be all cohesive and stuff in order for your business to succeed, and for your Instagram to grow and stuff like that. It was much more about, your Instagram feed than it was, the art that you wanted to put forward. I just felt like there was all this pressure of, like I said, just having a cohesive Instagram feed, and for every photo to look the same as the last, and which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, that's just not, it's not realistic. It's not, I mean, if you took even if you took photos at the same location with the same person, but you did it on like 2 different days, like the lighting, the everything is going to be completely different and stuff like that. And so it's just really hard to replicate, over and over the same exact, look in every single photo and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of one of those things that I always hated, because I felt like I was in this tiny little box, and if I deviated from that box or tried to move to another box or anything like that, like the Instagram algorithm would punish me and stuff like that. And then I wouldn't get bookings and people wouldn't want to work with me and all this stuff. And there was like these other photographers that felt like they, just were judging me for trying to do something different and stuff like that. And like all of it was a lot of in my own head type of thing. A lot of this was not real. It was just what I felt like and the things that people would say and stuff like that. And everything. And so there was a lot of teaching on that from photographers, and I feel like that was really toxic and not great. I feel like it really puts kind of a damper on the industry as a whole. But that's a whole different video for a whole different channel, because we're not here to talk about photography really. But yeah, so I hated that whole side of it, especially, running Instagram, Facebook and stuff like that for my business. I still don't love it in my current business, but that's another story that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I hated the whole, running Instagram, Facebook, etc. for my business, like I said. And honestly, just basically any of the business side of things with photography, I absolutely couldn't stand it. I didn't want to do that portion. I just wanted to take photos and edit them and send them to people and hopefully have them be happy with them. And honestly, even like the, sending them to them and stuff like that, I was just always made me a little anxious, because I was like, are they going to like them? Are they going to hate them? Things like that. Thankfully, I never really had any like major negative feedback or anything like that. But yeah, it was just one of those things, like I just did not like the business side of running a photography business. But obviously, if you're going to run a business, you have to do those things. And so it was just one of those things that I learned, like in this business, I've had to learn how to do things or make them more fun. Right now, at least, until I can hire people someday in order to run those parts of the business that I don't like as much. But I've had to learn how to make them more fun and more enjoyable, or, at least less exhausting or whatever, in my current candle business. Thankfully, with the candle business, for whatever reason, I love the business side of it. I actually don't mind the business side of this business. I, for whatever reason, didn't love it with photography at all. But with this business, I actually really enjoy most of it. To me, it's almost more like, it definitely does combine like creativity with business and stuff, but this business is more business to me than it is creativity, if that makes sense. So I just don't feel as like boxed in when I'm doing this business and everything. I actually enjoy the business side of this business. I enjoy ordering new supplies and new fragrances. Obviously, that's the funnest part. But I enjoy like restocking supplies and like ordering, more jars and, having to like go through them and all that stuff. I don't know why. I actually enjoy it with this business. It's a lot more work, I feel like, behind the scenes and stuff. There's a lot more to this side of the business for my candle business than there ever was with the photography business. But with the candle business, I actually enjoy all of the business side of things, or at least most of them. There's a few things that I'm like, I could do without doing that. But but for the most part, I actually do enjoy doing, the business side of things with this business. Good Lord, I feel like I just said business 8,000 times. So I would encourage you, if there are things that you just really don't enjoy about the business side of the candle business, I would really encourage you to find ways to make it more fun, or at least more at least less sucky, for lack of better words. For me, one of the things that I didn't really love at first was labeling the candles. I definitely don't mind it as much now, but that's because I found ways to make it more enjoyable. So for instance, I will usually, like, I have a TV back behind the wall, or behind the camera, I should say, in my candle studio, and so I'll just turn on, either something on YouTube or Netflix or whatever, and I'll just, put something on and like just kind of listen to it as I am, sitting there just labeling candles and stuff. And so I also used to stand a lot when I was labeling candles, and that would, like, after a while of like hunching over and, trying to get the label straight and all that, it just would make my back hurt and stuff like that. And so it just, really wasn't enjoyable. And so I found a way to do it like while sitting and while, like I have, either a video playing in the background or a movie or show or something like that that I can just kind of listen to and not really, pay a whole lot of attention. It's kind of very mundane type work or whatever. But that makes it feel like it goes by so much faster. Just that simple thing of like, playing YouTube or a movie or a show or something in the background that I can, mostly listen to. I can't really watch it, obviously, because I have to pay attention somewhat, but, and things like that. But, so if there's like ways that you can find to make things that you don't enjoy more enjoyable, and less sucky, I think that that is really the best way. Until you can hire people to do those things for you, and stuff like that. Because obviously I know a lot of us are still a one-man or one-woman show, and everything. But someday when you are able to hire people to do those things for you, you will enjoy it so much more. And the third reason of why my business failed, and the reason why I've been adding air quotes to that the whole time, is because I decided that it was time to move on. And I feel like you should feel some sense of empowerment, I guess, with that, because you decide when your business is done and over. No one else decides that for you. No matter how much money you might have lost or whatever, no matter how much you might owe to a bank or something if you took out loans, please don't take out loans. Loans are not designed for you to win. Seriously, I don't even mess with them in my business and stuff. If you guys heard of 1617, that is a perfect prime example of why I do not mess with loans in my business and stuff like that. I simply have always paid for everything myself, and now thankfully the business is sustaining itself, so I don't have to use any of my own money. But yeah, loans, I feel like, are not set up and designed for you to win. They just want their money, which is why interest rates are what they are. And yeah, I just really don't encourage you to get a loan, but like I said earlier, do what you want. It's your business. Say you even owe money on your loan and unfortunately, you're maybe not getting as many sales as you wanted or whatever. You still decide. You still have the power to decide when your business has failed and when you're moving on. And that was what I did with photography. It was just time. It didn't feel enjoyable to me anymore. I didn't like the business side of it, like I said. And I was doing too many of the things that I just didn't love, and I didn't want to do them anymore. And it kind of got to the point where I wasn't even enjoying doing the clients that I wanted to do anymore. Like, I wasn't enjoying senior photos or things like that when they would happen to somewhat come along. I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. Like, it was just the spark that it once had gone. And so I thankfully have, like, photography has kind of been renewing in me a little bit, but not in the same way. Like, I love doing product photos now and things like that, or, thumbnail photos for these videos and things like that, even though it's like mostly easy and stuff like that. But, for the most part, it's, things like that I enjoy more now. And I still do enjoy photography, and occasionally, I haven't done it in a long time, but I like to take my camera out and just, go take random photos of whatever I can find, and stuff, and just something I can do by myself, but it's something that like I was using it as a get out of my 9 to 5 for the longest time. And it really wasn't, even though, like, yes, it was something that I enjoyed, I kind of unfortunately took it to a place where I no longer enjoyed it and it was no longer fun to me. And I, honestly, even now, I still get sometimes, like, I literally just the other day, someone asked me for if I wanted to do a wedding or whatever and take photos at a wedding. And I was like, no, literally nothing sounds worse to me than that. And so I decided when it was time to move on, when I found candle making and when I discovered how much I loved that and how much I actually love the business side of it as well, and how much I'm not listening to what other people think or what they say, or, telling me how I have to run my business and stuff like that. Thankfully, I haven't really had anyone do that with this business, but because I kept it much more to myself when I was first starting and stuff like that. But if I had had people telling me how to run my business and stuff, I would have for sure, kind of been kindly like, okay, well, thanks. And then I would have still done my own thing, because I just learned that with my previous business that I can't do those things anymore. Like I'm not going to force myself to continue to do things that are not really making me happy. Like we're only here for a short period of time. I'm not going to spend my whole life doing something that I don't absolutely love. Like, I'm just not going to do that. But like I was saying, you decide when that time has come, when it is time to move on. And so I think that should empower you, because people always talk about being scared that they're going to fail. And I'm like, well, just choose not to fail. It's really like, I feel like people make it to be so much. And like, yes, I've had that fear of failure. Absolutely. Like, I get it. I fear, like I'll go weeks to months or whatever without getting any orders suddenly, or, things like that. But you decide when you're throwing in the towel. You decide when you're quitting. And I feel like that doesn't, that comes with such a negative like tone or negative connotation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. If you decide that like, hey, this isn't for me, that's okay. Find something else that is for you and that you do want to do. For me, like, I think that people kind of thought that I was always going to be a photographer, and I kind of for a long time went along with that because I felt like that was what people expected of me, because I had just been doing it for so long. And so I kind of went along with that, but it wasn't really what I wanted anymore. At one time, I would have absolutely said, yes, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. But there was always something in me that was like, I kind of wish that I was just doing this as a hobby and not as a business. And the candle business, right away from the beginning, I was like, I want to do this as a business. Like, literally almost before I'd even made my first candles, I was like, this would be a fun business, and stuff like that. And I never felt like that with photography. I was always like, man, I kind of wish I was just doing this as a hobby or as a, side thing or whatever. I don't really want to do this as a business because I hate the business side of it, specifically. And, it just took, when I turned it into a business, it just kind of took all the joy out of it. And so I think that, when you decide that something is not for you, that's okay. Like, it's okay to move on. It's all right to decide, hey, this actually isn't for me. I want to go do this other thing now instead. That's all right. And it's all right if you do that 20 times or whatever, however many times it takes you to figure out what you actually want to do. That's totally fine. And there is no time limit on like, you have to figure out what you're going to do right this second or anything like that. Like, we all feel like there is. There are so many amazing people out there that you all have heard of or all know the name of that didn't start their career until way later in life. And that's all right. And it's all right if you start early in life too, though. I definitely don't see myself quitting, you know, candle business or anything like that. I think it might eventually grow into other things like soaps, and, you know, there's so many different avenues that you can take with candle making, and stuff like that. I think it will eventually grow and evolve into other things, but I don't necessarily see myself quitting or anything like that. Eventually, I might retire or whatever, but, you know, I feel like I'll still be part of the business in some capacity for as long as I can. As long as you decide to keep going, people will eventually show up. I know that it might feel like it's just, you know, you're just chugging along, you've been doing things for a long time or whatever, and, you know, maybe you're just not getting the results you want or whatever, but if you just keep putting in the work, I guarantee you that eventually, it might take some time, I don't know how long it'll take, but eventually the results that you want will come. It might take some time to get there. It might not feel, you know, like you want to keep going or whatever. But if you decide that, like, hey, this is where I want to continue investing my time, then you haven't failed. You haven't, you know, even if you've had 0 sales, I don't care if you've been open for 3 years and you've had 0 sales. If you're still going, if you're still wanting to do this, if you're still, you know, putting out social media content, if you're still advertising your business, if you're still putting in the work to make this work, then you haven't failed. You have not given up, and that is a good thing. So, all that to say, I hope that this video encouraged you. I really hope that, you know, I was able to kind of help you kind of see that failure is our own choice. It's our own option. We choose whether we fail or not, and I hope that that has helped you today. But with that, I think I am going to end today's video right there. I know this was a long-winded one. I'm sorry. I get really passionate about certain things, and so, but I really hope that this video helped you and encouraged you, because that is my main goal with this channel. As always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments down in the comments below, and I'd love to talk about this with you guys and just kind of see where you're at and stuff like that, where your business is, how you're feeling, and things like that. But with that, that's going to be it for today. If you guys would like to continue hanging out, there's going to be some other videos that pop up on the screen, and I will see you there.